On Friday, to end out the show, I went on a fiery rant explaining that if you see the Pittsburgh Steelers get outscored, even with how great the Browns defense is, but also with how great the Steelers defense is, when you have two similar teams where the defenses are the strength and the offenses are just absolutely putrid. But when Pittsburgh doesn't show up offensively in this game, that should be it for Matt Canada. And in the game yesterday, they are down 10-0. Not that their offense really did anything outside of the Jaylen Warren big run, but you get the game to 10-10. And right at the end of the game, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who's only having a second career start, goes down the field, somewhat gets hot late, and puts the ball in field goal position where Dustin Hopkins hits what was a gimme for the game winner. That should be the nail in the coffin for Matt Canada. But let me be clear when I go through that I'm not putting all the blame on Matt Canada. Matt Canada, though, should not have a job because it's the definition of insanity to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. So I'm not exonerating Mike Tomlin. I'm not letting Kenny Pickett off the hook. But you know Mike Tomlin isn't going anywhere right now. And you know, at least for this season, Kenny Pickett isn't going anywhere right now. But you need to do something. Because doing nothing makes absolutely, positively zero sense. And it's the definition of, quite frankly, jackassery. And even though Mike Tomlin is a really good coach, and I'm not sitting here advocating for Mike Tomlin to be fired, because if Mike Tomlin was fired, he'd be scooped up by another team in an instant. But when you are a coach of an organization that is successful, an organization that is patient, and an organization that doesn't make hasty decisions, and there's a reason there have really only been 3 coaches that anybody knows about, you still have to find a way to meet the standard. And in the last few years, what we've seen from the Steelers towards the end of Big Ben, when the offense is cooking, the defense stinks. Now, for the last few years, the defense has been cooking and the offense has zero identity. So it is on Mike Tomlin, who is really the CEO of the Steelers right now. He needs to make the change. And I said this on Friday, and I'll say it again. I don't expect any change to occur, but it doesn't mean I need to sit here and be silent. It doesn't mean I need to sit here with my hands underneath my tuchus and not say anything. No. I'm going to use my platform. I'm going to use my voice. And we got to hold Mike Tomlin accountable, because the Steelers used to be this proud, successful, winning organization. And I know Mike Tomlin has never finished below 500 as a head coach, which is remarkable. But finishing above 500, it's expected in Pittsburgh. It's a requirement in Pittsburgh. So just because you finish above 500 doesn't mean you get off the hook, doesn't mean we need to give you a pass. And it speaks to how good of a coach Mike Tomlin is, that without zero offense pretty much for the last few years, this team has continued that. And they'll continue it this year at 6-4. But what are you doing to try to put yourself in a better position? That's my problem with Mike Tomlin right now. And if it's loyalty, if it's stubbornness, if it's stupidity, whatever it is, or maybe choice D, all the above, it's got to change. Because we all know you're a damn good football coach. We all know you're one of the more respected people in the NFL. But sometimes changes occur even to guys that are highly successful and guys that people know will get scooped up in a second, even if the Steelers were to part ways. Like, we are talking this year for the last few months, and I know Belichick is polarizing. I know people don't like Bill Belichick. But everyone is ready for the Patriots to move on or trade Bill Belichick. So if that could happen to Bill, who has been employed by the New England Patriots as their head coach for 24 years and has won 6 Super Bowls and has been to an additional 3 as the head coach, it could happen to Mike Tomlin, who has a ring, who has been to another Super Bowl. And the facts are with Mike Tomlin's Steelers, even though I'm a fan, even though I believe he's a good coach, the facts are he has not won a playoff game since the 2016 season. That's a long time. And for some organizations, and I know Stu kind of looks at me and goes, is it really a long time? Lions fans will say, we haven't won a playoff game since 1991. So I understand that every organization is held to a different standard. But the Steelers are in a better class than the Raiders. The Steelers are in a better class than the Lions, even though this looks like it's the Lions' year, and they're starting to display that they're America's team. We'll get to that later. But for the Pittsburgh Steelers, not winning a playoff game since the 2016 season is ridiculous. It's a flat-out joke. It's unacceptable. It's inexcusable. So even though I am a Mike Tomlin fan, the pressure is going to get turned up a little bit on Mike Tomlin because the easy, obvious, and clear-cut scapegoat needs to be getting rid of Matt Canada. But for whatever the reasons are, Mike Tomlin's a good-looking man. He's in shape. So I can't even make the cheesy joke that maybe Matt Canada has embarrassing photos of Mike Tomlin. But for whatever the reasons are, Tomlin still employs Matt Canada. And it's not only Matt Canada, it's also Kenny Pickett. But I'm not going to demand today that Kenny Pickett shouldn't start next week, shouldn't play for the rest of the season. You give him the rest of the season, and I'm going to assume that nothing really changes because Canada stinks and Pickett stinks. And then at the end of the year, you say goodbye to both of them. If you want to keep Pickett on the roster, fine. But you need to make sure that you have someone else starting at quarterback. Because it's clear that Matt Canada isn't that dude. We've known that for a while. And now, even though he has 7 game-winning drives attached to his resume and he hasn't completed 2 full seasons yet in the NFL, it's clear that Kenny Pickett is not a great quarterback. He's not even a good quarterback. There's a reason there was only one quarterback that year that won in the first round, and Kenny Pickett had to wait as long as he did. Because it shows you how many other teams in their scouting didn't have a belief even in Kenny Pickett at that time. It's a nice story, him going to Pittsburgh, all that stuff, getting drafted by the Steelers. But if Mike Tomlin is serious about winning, if Mike Tomlin wants to win a playoff game, which he hasn't done since 2016, Mike Tomlin wants to get the Steelers back to winning playoff games and winning a Super Bowl, he's got to go back to the drawing board this offseason. You need a new offensive coordinator, and next year, you need a new quarterback because you have a championship defense, but you have the farthest thing from a championship offense. You have, quite frankly, a JV9 offense right now. So we go from the problems with the Steelers to then the team that they just played. That's the Cleveland Browns. Where for Cleveland Browns fans, you should be thrilled. You should be jumping up and down today like fat kids in a candy store. Because those wins, after what Big Ben Roethlisberger did to you for 15 years or so, did not come a whole lot. And to get a win up against the Steelers, I don't care if it was clean, I don't care if it was ugly, it's very important for Cleveland. And give credit to Kevin Stefanski. A lot of people had him on the hot seat before the year. A lot of people thought it was a foregone conclusion he would lose his job at the end of the season. He's gotten nothing out of his quarterback in Deshaun Watson. And we know Watson is now out for the season. But with a phenomenal defense led by Myles Garrett, who could make a case for the MVP this year, the Cleveland Browns are 7-3. That's a heck of an accomplishment. The Cleveland Browns are not only 7-3, they are 7-3 without Nick Chubb, who's their best offensive player, and then also without their quarterback that they guaranteed all that money to in Deshaun Watson. That is wild. And it just shows you that the Browns right now, who are in a similar position as the Steelers, but they're in a better position. Because the Browns, with really not much from their quarterback until the end, found a way to get the job done. But if you're Cleveland, even though you should be thrilled with what transpired yesterday, I think you got to make one phone call. Because the Cleveland Browns, if they had a quarterback, they would be a bona fide Super Bowl contender. And when you look at Cleveland, even though the Dorian Thompson-Robinson final drive was fun, and we know this defense is kick-ass, and we know this offensive line is good, you know Amari Cooper is a really underrated wide receiver still. With all those things, you just have a quarterback, and if you had a quarterback, this could be a team, and this isn't crazy to say, that could be in the Super Bowl this year. Because the AFC is wide open. Chiefs are damn good. Ravens are damn good. But after that, there's not a third team that has taken the baton and really have run with it and showed that they belong in the top three conversation in the AFC amongst the NFL elite and the AFC elite. And that's why, I put myself in Andrew Berry's shoes. You got to make this phone call. Because just bringing in Joe Flacco on the practice squad, that doesn't really move the needle. I saw what Joe Flacco did last year with the Jets. Yeah, thanks, but no thanks. Good to have a body in there, but it's not going to be an effective body. You got to call Tom Brady. You have to. Brady is the greatest winner the NFL has ever seen. Brady is the greatest quarterback this league has ever seen. And he still has good football left in him. You know he's still addicted to the game, and Brady never turns down a winning situation. And as crazy as this seems, the NFL that was the NFL the 20 years Tom Brady played in it, Cleveland wasn't a winning destination. But now they are. And I legitimately think, even though he has not played this year, and who knows what kind of shape he's in, but he's the GOAT, that if Tom Brady walked into the Browns facility tomorrow, he could win a Super Bowl this year. He could be playing on Super Bowl Sunday in the middle of February in Las Vegas. Because this Browns team has enough on offense, they have a good line, and they have a championship caliber defense. I don't know if Brady would say yes, but Andrew Berry, if you haven't made the phone call yet, that is a massive, and that is an egregious mistake. Because dangle football in front of Tom Brady and try to see if Tom Brady really says no. Let's see how retired Tom Brady is. And for Brady, you can't lose here. You go to Cleveland and you win a playoff game, we already know where you are in the NFL, but the Browns fans would be thrilled. You go win 2 playoff games, they wouldn't know what to do with themselves. You win 3 and get to a Super Bowl, they'd be doing somersaults in the street. And if you somehow win 4 playoff games, and you know Brady could do so, and bring a Lombardi trophy to the Browns, not that Tom Brady's resume need any enhancements, but we know what he did in New England with those 6 Super Bowls. We know he won one in Tampa. But imagine what that would do in Cleveland. Imagine that. Quite frankly, it'd be bigger than LeBron's championship with the Cavaliers. And that was wild. Absolutely wild. Down 3-1. One of my favorite championships of all time with that comeback. And the whole, Cleveland, this is for you. Imagine Brady on the podium in a Cleveland Browns uniform. Cleveland, this is for you. It would be spectacular. And I don't have a dog in a fight. I don't have a team to root for this year. My team's out of it. I'm rooting for the Pats to tank. Brady gets back into the game, goes to Cleveland. I'm okay with it. The Browns for years were losers. I'm okay if they want to be winners with TB12. But let him at least say no. Don't just assume he'll say no.